Back in May 2025, 3 months ago, almost to the day, when the Criterion Collection announced that this set would be released here on August 19th, 2025, that is A Confucian Confusion and Mahjong, two films by Edward Yang, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what to expect. I'd seen a couple of Edward Yang films. Back in its original DVD release, I watched Yi Yi, which happens to be Yang's final film. It was released in 2000. He died in 2007, age of 59 or 60, somewhere in there. And this was a film that had gotten a lot of attention as a really splendid examination of Taiwanese family life and the perspectives of different generations. It had this kind of elegant, reflective tone, that had, it had its happy and its up times, but also its somber and reflective moments as well. It just kind of captured the expanse of life as it was being lived by these people at the time. And, elegant, classy, very distinctive, very uplifting film. And then for a number of years, there was this other film floating around out there, A Brighter Summer Day. I had read reviews. I'd heard people who'd seen it say, oh, this is just a fantastic, compelling, epic saga. It's got to get released someday, but it was very much in doubt for a number of years whether or not this Brighter Summer Day would ever see the light of day as far as a conveniently accessible Blu-ray was concerned. But lo and behold, the Criterion Collection came through, released it, and this is a film that lives up to the hype. It is 4 hours long. It's a very compelling depiction of the life of young people in particular who were brought to the Taiwanese, the capital city, Taipei, as their parents, many of them kind of the losers of a civil war that took place in China. They kind of evacuated from the mainland, set up martial law in this city in the island of Taiwan, and basically, imposed their values and their way of life on the local culture and, of course, on their children as well. And so this is a story that just kind of talks about those experiences, a kind of an autobiographical in some ways, and also based on some true historic events. But again, 3 hours of Yi, 4 hours of A Brighter Summer Day, somber, eloquent, dramatic films. And then there's Taipei Story, which came out a few years ago in one of these World Cinema Foundation box sets, and it was kind of tucked away in there, the film number 6 of 6 in the set. A lot of people thought, boy, this one deserves its own standalone release. Edward Yang's reputation by then had kind of elevated. So Yi was his final film, Taipei Story was his second. I believe A Brighter Summer Day was maybe his third, or I think it was his fourth. So along comes these two, Confucian Confusion and Mahjong, and I figured, okay, we're going to get more of that kind of, reflective, slow burn look at Taiwanese society from a slightly different angle, different setting, different characters. Well, my expectations were fulfilled in the sense that I knew these were going to be quality films, but they were a lot more raucous, even raunchy, and sometimes just flat out funny than I was ever expecting them to be. These are the 5th and 6th films that Edward Yang made, and they are released in this 2 for, not the price of one, but it's a 2-disc Blu-ray set that captures these pretty important and pivotal films, movies that I really enjoyed. I've only had a chance to watch them each one time. I've had a pretty busy weekend of it, but since they're hitting the street markets today, your local vendors, you can order them online. These are now available films, and I wanted to just give a little sense of what to expect. Confucian Confusion is set in kind of the entertainment, television industry of early 90s Taiwan, Taipei in particular, the capital city. And it comes at you pretty fast. In fact, I would recommend reading up a little bit on it. Read the little brochure by Dennis Lim. His essay does a nice job of walking you in. You might even want to, get onto the Wikipedia or whatever and just kind of understand who these characters are, because these are both ensemble pictures and they kind of throw you right into the midst of a pretty entangled situation. It's basically setting it within a TV network and the businesses associated with it, as you've got different characters relating to each other through illicit affairs, sisters, marriage, married into each other's families, a lot of new wealth, a lot of status seeking, a lot of jockeying for position, for the upper hand, the advantage in a very competitive environment where it's all about, ratings and making positive impressions and, grabbing market share. And there's just a lot of entanglement that happens. And I kind of came in thinking I'm just going to settle in and watch this kind of, spectacle unfold, but it really is a bit of a whirlwind right off the bat. So I'm looking forward to my second watch in the near future, just to kind of understand a little bit better where these characters are coming from and where it's going. The second film, Mahjong, is one where maybe I had already made my adjustment and recognized that Yang was going to come at me with a little bit more of an aggressive approach than I was expecting based on my experience watching his earlier films. That one is set in more of like a criminal, kind of seedy gang-like underground. People who are scammers, hustlers, they're con artists of various sorts. And that one, I think, is probably, of the two, the one I've enjoyed the most. But again, a second watch might give me some different impressions. I just basically want to come out here and just give these films a little bit of love and attention. I feel like I still may want to come back and do more of an in-depth interview, maybe a dedicated clip about each film. But I did want to also just kind of get the word out there that these are important films not to be slept on. With 2 Blu-rays, the price point's going to be a little bit higher, but you get a pretty good package here. Not only do you get 2 feature films from a guy who I really do consider a master filmmaker, an important voice, and you only wish he had lived longer to kind of give more of his insights and perspectives than we're able to get. But he packs a lot into his movies. They're very watchable. The production values are immaculate, as you might expect. And these are also films that keep it moving pretty well. So if you've sat through a brighter summer day, all 4 hours of it, 3 hours of Yi, these are both about 2-hour movies. And I would say the pace accelerates beyond what you're going to see in either of those other two. And so there's also more in these supplements. I have not really had a chance to do much more than just sample them. But there is an early play called Likely Consequence from 1992 that's a pretty good supplement feature here. It's about 45 minutes. It's a very kind of low budget, minimalistic stage design. In fact, the actors are kind of like miming. There's not really any props on stage, and it's a very small cast. But you get a chance to see a little bit more of Edward Yang's artistry, his writing, and so I'll take a closer look at that and give you a little bit more extended thoughts once I get a chance to watch the whole thing. There's also about an hour-long Q&A session that Yang gives on videotape after a screening, an early screening of a Confucian Confusion. And that's very interesting. Again, I haven't gotten through the entire hour of it yet, but he goes into great depth, and it's basically him answering the questions. They've edited out all of the questioners, and basically it's just him giving you content of his thoughts about the movie and what went into its making. So this is very much a definitive set that you want to get if you want to get into the career of Edward Yang. There's also kind of the expected video supplement, which is basically Chinese cultural studies scholar Michael Berry and film critic Justin Chang having some dialogue about Edward Yang, and an interview with one of his editors, who has, of course, a lot to say about the making of these films. And again, yeah, the editing, all that technical stuff, very nice, very enjoyable to take it in and just get more familiar with this very accomplished and talented man. So that's what I'm going to say about it for right now. Also, these are films that deal with kind of updating the traditional morality of their culture. The title, A Confucian Confusion, is not just a clever play on words. He is really wrestling with the effect that modern economics and globalization and the cultural exchange between East and West has had upon the traditional morality of Chinese society, especially, again, the very conservative authoritarian style of government and social structure that came over with the Chinese nationalists when they kind of took over the island of Taiwan and the city of Taipei. So, you're going to get some philosophical stuff, people trying to figure out what do they really want from life and what steps are they willing to take in order to get it. And are the things that they're pursuing really worth it in terms of the cost to themselves, the sacrifices of their relationships, even their own conscience. So yeah, there's a lot to be enjoyed and appreciated in these films. I'm going to give them a strong endorsement. Check it out. I'll be back with you actually with some additional thoughts once I've had a chance to digest these films and think through it a little bit more.